So a number of media outlets have had a hands-on play with Shadow of the Erdtree, the upcoming DLC expansion for Elden Ring, and there's a lot of new and exciting things to expect. It goes without saying that these discoveries could be considered spoilery for those who want to discover things by themselves, but if you don't mind that, then here's a whole roundup of what we can expect from Shadow of the Erdtree. The Realm of Shadow. Pretty much the first thing of note is the feeling of entering the new area, the Realm of Shadow. It's comparable with the first time you step into Limgrave in the base Elden Ring. In GameSpot's description of starting Shadow of the Erdtree, they said, "My journey began in what was essentially a grave site nestled in a dark corner of the Land of Shadow. It was reminiscent of awakening in the Cemetery of Ash in Dark Souls 3, but this DLC quickly reminded me that Elden Ring is a game built on open areas." Emerging from my starting point, I looked out onto a landscape layered with details. Directly ahead of me was a field pockmarked, signalling the death that seemingly swept through in the past. Further out, I could see larger structures awaiting, and in the distance, a large tree reminiscent of the Erdtree, but not quite right. And another thing of note, talking about the Realm of Shadow, is the sheer size of the new play area. The feeling of awe, the feeling of grandeur, the feeling of a big adventure laid out ahead of you. This new Shadow Realm is roughly the size of Limgrave and the Weeping Peninsula combined, and with a splash of Caelid for good measure. Also in the opening area of this Realm of Shadow is a large fortress called the Belurat Settlement Tower, and comparably it's roughly the size between Stormveil Castle and Castle Morn from base Elden Ring. And according to sources, there are a lot of optional paths to take as you navigate the area. This new map is more densely packed than base Elden Ring, and the entire DLC feels expansive and filled with content. Enemies and bosses. At the end of Belurat Settlement Tower, you can expect to battle it out against the divine beast Dancing Lion. Which is used as an early game skill check for players. The beast is pretty tough and alternates between lightning and ice attacks to keep the tarnished, that's you, on their toes. And on the note of bosses, there are an impressive 10 main bosses in Shadow of the Erdtree, with additional side bosses to boot. The enemies overall are faster and more agile than in base Elden Ring, so endgame builds can expect a decent challenge from ground level enemies as well as area bosses. Talking about ground level enemies, there's also new enemy types which include scorpions, grave birds, ghosts and heavily armoured knights. According to Game Informer, the toughest enemy I encountered is a towering twin sword wielding knight clad in beautiful gold armor. Despite its size, it's extremely fast and unleashes a whirlwind of sword slashes that eviscerated me several times as I attempted to defeat him. Weapons. There are an astounding 100 new weapons, as well as 8 brand new weapon types. New weapons are ranging from the heavy smith script axe, which can be thrown at enemies at a distance, and the backhand blade, which can be detached into dual-wielded swords. And as part of the new weapon types, we now have martial arts. This lets you go barehanded with swinging kicks and heavy punches to go hand-to-hand with enemies, and it also allows you to assign a skill to further your moveset. The Blessing System. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree introduces the Shadow Realm's Blessing System. This is where beginners can use Erdtree fragments, a stackable consumable that helps to reduce damage received and increases damage dealt. About this new system, VG247 said, "For those who perhaps might enter the DLC a little underleveled, there's a new mechanic to help, the Erdtree Blessing. This works a lot like collecting golden seeds and the like to power up your healing options in the main game. Except this mechanic offers you a permanent buff to your damage dealing and resisting capabilities, but only while in the Lands of Shadow." So, between 30 to 40 hours long, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is shaping up to be a huge expansion. Releasing on the 21st of June, you can play this DLC expansion on PlayStation, Xbox and PC. But obviously you would need to have the base Elden Ring to play. To access Shadow of the Erdtree's content, you'll have to have defeated General Radahn and the Omen Morgue in base Elden Ring. VG247 said, "It's from the boss arena of the latter that you'll be able to be transported to the Land of Shadow, through the newly added invitation to touch the withered arm, and without too much fanfare, you're dropped into an all-new area." By the end of their playthroughs, the different outlets shared their overall opinions. IGN said, "I felt like I accomplished a lot in my 3 hours of playtime with Shadow of the Erdtree, but even then it felt like there was so much left on the table." Game Informer said, "My biggest takeaway from Shadow of the Erdtree is that it's more Elden Ring, and it's a new excuse to revisit a world I love. All I want is to experience a new gauntlet of trials and surprises, and Shadow of the Erdtree seems poised to deliver that and then some." And GameSpot said, "Shadow of the Erdtree is more of the same Elden Ring gameplay you know, but with new weapons, items and areas to enjoy. And that is something that no other game has offered and no other developer has delivered. If Shadow of the Erdtree's quality is consistent with what I played, FromSoftware is on the cusp of reaffirming Elden Ring as one of the greatest open world games ever made." Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree dropping on Xbox, PlayStation and PC on the 21st of June. We don't have long to wait until we get to play. So what do you think about what we know so far? Is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree something you're looking forward to? Please let me know in the comments. But for now, please like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next video.
The Elden Ring.
If you got to the end of this video, then please do like and subscribe.